Once a week I do a live stream and we play this game called Speed Dating for Ghosts. And it's really fun because these kooky characters show up and everybody who's streaming live with me gets to help me make the decision on what to do next, whether I go out with them again or how I respond, blah, 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 blah. And then everybody has fun in the chat room. It's because I have a lot of funny people, thank God, who are my subs. Weird thing is, by the time we got down to picking the last bachelor, meaning out of 3 ghosts to, go on the date with, in this game, he starts talking about, I picked the guy, or I don't know what it was. It's a strange looking ghost. And he starts talking about the voices that he hears in his head. And he's been hearing voices in his head. And I was like, wait a minute. I just got done doing a video about hearing voices in your head, like 2 hours before we played the game. Hadn't even posted it yet. That's all. I just thought it was weird. Is it because AI hears us? But if AI hears us, it has nothing to do with a game that I was streaming on a different site called Steam. Could it be a quinky dink? Yeah, it could. So could lots of different things. Lots of things. What's real anymore? Who knows? But anyway, I thought I'd preface this video with how I was kind of a little bit freaked out, and I'll show you. I'll play a snippet of it, and then the video about hearing voices in your head. You tell me, because I don't get it. So I want to talk about something that has come up for me recently, and that is hearing voices in the head. Now, first of all, my cousin, who was just put into hospice today, she's about 54, and no, not 54, she's about 58, but she started hearing voices in college. They were telling her more like she thought she was talking to her professor, and then found out that her professor wasn't mentally speaking to her. Anyway, she was diagnosed with a type of schizophrenia and has been in care in a facility her whole entire life. Oddly enough, she drinks about 20, maybe 10 to 20 Pepsis a day, always has. Not saying that has anything to do with it. It's just when I was a kid, I remember her drinking Pepsi constantly. And I wonder about the soul. I wonder what happens. I wonder why her life had to be this tragic world where she was talking to these voices all the time and needed to be put in a facility. She was not able to really function alone, but she wasn't to the point where she needed 24/7 care either. And it's just gotten to a point where something's gone wrong with her esophagus. Doctors don't know. It's just weird, but now she's in a coma, and they're putting her in hospice today. It's been traumatic for my aunt and uncle. My aunt passed away about 5 years ago in a car accident. She was killed instantly because the truck driver was texting. And she was with 5 other people in the car. Anyway, the point is, she took a lot of the responsibility, and both her and my uncle lived near my cousin to help as much as they could. No matter what happens to your child, I imagine being a parent, you're going to be there no matter what. And even if it's an ongoing struggle your entire life, and something that you have to take on and not understand and know that, they were really there for her. So my uncle has taken on a lot of it after my aunt passed away, and so has my other cousins. And it's just been, there's just a lot of no answers to all of it, And I think that there's been a lot of discussion about mental health recently, and mental sickness, and everything from depression to self-harm and all this kind of thing. But what she had takes it to another level. She was on medication, but who knows if it helped or made it worse. The point is, this has happened. I just found out yesterday that she was put into hospice. A lot of us are sad in the family, but we're also feeling as if, what is she feeling in this coma? You know what I mean? Who is that soul that has been troubled and talking to these other voices her whole life? It's something I don't know. I think about it. I can't get my mind around it. Because she was okay as a teenager, you know. It was in college that the voices really started happening. But I say that because my friend's daughter, 14 years old, started to hear voices about a year ago. So I took her out for coffee when I visited them, and they live in wine country, and I felt a connection to her daughter. She was just so full of life and very vibrant and just happy child. So, and I know that every family has issues. There's a little trouble in the home, and every child has to deal with conflicts with mom and dad. She tried to describe them to me as best as she could, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't overstepping my boundaries by asking. But I felt a connection to her over the past few years, so I think she felt safe in telling me. And she just said it was before she went to sleep, and there would be about 5 or 6 of them. And I asked her if she could see the voices. What were the voices saying? And she said they were definitely evil, and they were telling her to hurt herself. They were telling her to harm herself, telling her things like she wasn't loved, and that if she ever told anyone, her mom wouldn't love her. I mean, all these horrible things. And she said there's nothing she could say, even though she fought them, they won every time. And she said when she closed her eyes, she could almost see them, like entities, that she was helpless in a way because they had more power over her. And of course, her mom at that point is petrified. And her mom told me that there was a point where she actually was afraid, so afraid of what her daughter would do when she listened to these voices, that she slept in her daughter's bed and like tied her daughter just with a bathrobe, tied their legs, so that if the daughter got up and was listening to the voices, she would wake up as well and stop her from harming herself. That's how scary it got. So she went to see a couple therapists and a psychiatrist, and she also started to harm herself. I don't know if you guys have heard of cutting. Cutting is something I've never in my life been a part of, nor do I understand it. When I was in college and high school, I think the most damaging thing they did was 1 out of every 2 definitely had anorexia or bulimia. It was all about being skinny. I don't know if that's still the case. I'm grateful now that, like, a big ass is in style, because I was born with little J-Lo booty. So all that is good, but I always felt very self-conscious about it. I'm horrible at throwing up. I even failed at, I wasn't that good in school, and I also failed at anorexia or bulimia. My friends were doing it, they were throwing up, and I couldn't do it. Like, I was like, wow, I can't even succeed at bulimia. It's just throwing up. I can eat a lot. It's the throwing up part that I couldn't do. Couldn't get myself to do it. Rarely thrown up in my life. That's why when I do, I know it's a big deal. But all that to say, they're the type of illnesses that are brought on by society, thinking you have to look a certain way, which is bulimia, anorexia, and other things. You know, now it's going to the Botox and plastic surgery when kids are like 20, 21, already messing up their face and their body. But this is different. This is called cutting. And for those of you who haven't heard of what this is, it is an epidemic. And it's not only, it's like from the ages of, I would say, 13 to 22, 23 years old. I had someone live with me for 3 months. She was interning at a studio, and I learned about it through her, because her and her friend did it. And I couldn't understand. I actually thought she had like ketchup on her shirt and it was blood, and then she got really upset with me. I didn't know. I guess I had the feeling of what it must be like to be a mom and just be clueless and have your daughter mad at you for no reason. It's self-harm. It's self-inflicted pain. And I looked it up, and I'm going to put a little thing here, but it said because they're going through emotional pain, it's easier to deal with physical pain, so they inflict these wounds on their arms, sometimes all over their body. And sometimes it can turn into rituals and whatever. I don't know about that. I just know that cutting is a huge thing. And I asked my friend about that, and I said, what makes it worse? And by I mean worse, I mean what encourages you to do such a thing? And of course, it's the pain and the insecurity of growing up nowadays. But it was also, she said, Instagram. Groups on Instagram and groups. I mean, we've all talked about this, right? Social media has been turning into, I think, more of a negative than a positive, for sure. And the positive, it's given many people a voice that wouldn't normally have a voice. And that's good. Like, that part is positive. And people that would never have their music heard or their poetry or art seen or read, that's the part I do like about it. Gives more people a voice. Definitely brings to the surface the beauty and the ugly of the world as it is right now. And just in my last YouTube video talking about the pedophiles on YouTube, and yes, there can be innocent videos of girls on there, and you can't stop the psychopaths from time-stamping where they think is, and just turning it into a perverse thing. Personally, I wouldn't want my child on social media at all, and not on YouTube, nothing. Not until she's old enough to drive, at least. Because of that, because it's putting them in a field that is just, it's not safe. And unless she really had a good reason to be putting her stuff out there, for me, it's just, I would be mama bear. I'd be too protective. And I don't know the answer to all of that. And I also don't know if the cutting thing has anything to do with the voices. But she did go on medication. And the medication, I mean, she tried an antidepressant and then another. It's a mix of drugs. And now she's not hearing the voices anymore. But she's different. She's definitely not the same girl that I knew. And I don't know. I mean, I get pulled back and forth. Is the medication good? I mean, is our whole world mostly America? But it's is it just going to be medicate? Because where are these voices coming from ultimately? Is it 5G? Is it the internet? Or are certain entities being seeping through the portals of things like the internet? Is it CERN? Is it a hole in the fabric of time, space, all that stuff? I don't know the answer, but I know that there's a problem that needs to be addressed that I know didn't exist when I was younger. I mean, the voices, for one, hearing voices. And we know that there's been manipulation by certain groups, and human beings have been tested on as far as putting the voices in someone else's head. Experiments that have been done on humans for years and years. So part of me thinks maybe she's part of an experiment. Where do these voices come from? Now, we all have certain voices in our head. I mean, we all have that critical voice. Everybody has a critical voice. It's that voice that makes you feel guilty. It's the voice that said you shouldn't have done this, or you're living your life wrong, or you should have said sorry, or you should have... There's conscience, and then there's the voice that just... And sometimes you hear your mom or dad's voice, growing up. You never do it right, or this or that, We have those voices in our heads, but this is something different. This is something she said she felt when she closed her eyes before she went to sleep every night. They wouldn't really be that strong during the day. And I guess medication stopped it, but I guess I'm just saying this because I'm confused about a society where this has become normal. Because I looked it up. I looked up hearing voices, children hearing voices. Like, I literally Googled it. And a couple of the articles that I got were, it's totally normal. Mom and Dad, don't worry if your kids hear voices. That's normal. It's not. It's not normal. And why are they telling us it is normal? Part of me thinks pharma is creating this so that the billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars that are spent on pharmaceuticals continue to be spent on pharmaceuticals, because maybe it's the pharmaceutical companies that create the problem to then have the solution, right? We've all heard about that. Let's create the problem and let's rush in to be the solution, and then all of a sudden you're dependent on these medications to get rid of the voices in your head, which I don't understand. I really don't. Just been thinking about this and trying to come up with some sort of solution, and I don't think the solution is read the Bible. Jesus saves. Everyone rushes to that. But guess what? It doesn't stop the voices. Sometimes makes it worse. Maybe they're spiritual attacks. You know what I mean? Maybe that actually will make it worse. I'm not saying that's something you shouldn't do. Maybe you should need an exorcism. It just wasn't the case when I was younger. And I know that there was still depression and everything, but it's just gotten out of control. And I'm wondering what you guys think about all of that. And I can show you some of these articles that say, Mom and Dad, don't worry if your kids hear voices. It's totally normal. It's become normal. Not don't worry if they hear the critical voice. Don't worry if they hear multiple voices that are demonic telling them to do bad things. Don't worry about it. It's just a stage. It'll pass. No. I'm not buying into that. So I really do want to hear, I love this sign says, park at your own risk. That's beautiful. Not responsible for damage or theft. Okay. Well, if anyone wants to steal my dog bed, they're welcome to it. And this car has been, Volkswagen can kiss my, you know what? It's been nothing but a recall after recall after recall car. So you're welcome to my car or my dog bed here. Anything in this car they can have. So I'm going to risk it. I'm going to risk it and go to Trader Joe's right now. So that's my question I leave you with is, where are these voices coming from? What are we to do about it? And how can we be the solution? You know, I just think about my friend, her plate is full. You know, she's got one daughter that's hearing voices and cutting, and the other daughter's crying over boy problems. And I'm trying to instill some confidence in both of them, because a good time to learn that confidence is when you're young, and to learn what you deserve, and how much of it does have to do with the home being in topsy-turvy conditions, you know? The parents not getting along or divorced or whatever. I don't know. I don't want to be a downer. I just really want to discuss this, see if anybody has answers for how we can be the solution to this, because couldn't be the solution to my cousin, and I think those are different voices than the ones that kids say they're hearing today. I think she really did have schizophrenia, and I think it really was a mental illness. But something that can be cured by a pill, if voices can be cured by a pill, it's just confusing to me. Because I don't think medication should be permanent. I think it'd be good to be on it for a little bit, but the amount of drugs that our kids are on, from Ritalin to ADD medication, just so many things, and I don't know. I think there needs to be more awareness that this is happening, because I think it's more prevalent than we know. And as far as the cutting thing, that needs to be addressed too. And I think if kids are loved and really appreciated, supported, and told from someone that they respect that they're worthy and that they're enough, that could take away a lot of the problems. But we're not told that in high school, because we're too busy memorizing equations for math and too busy learning false information about the history of our country. And so I guess maybe that's the answer. It's to formulate some kind of program where kids can go somewhere and be inspired and be taught that they are worthy and that they are good enough. And that they're able to voice the voices. Maybe that's it. All right, guys, that's it. Just had to get that out. If you have any comments, let me know, because I'm still wondering. I just shake my head sometimes, you know? I don't know.